Right, patient X. This is the man at the centre of all the blame in Victoria for the state's latest COVID outbreak. Well, he told his side of the story to me today. Accused of spreading the virus through his use of a medical device at Melbourne's Holiday Inn, this Victorian man is furious at his treatment by senior government officials and the Premier, Daniel Andrews. He's endured 2 quarantine hotels, hospital intensive care, and seen Victoria's shambolic contact tracing system up close. It's no gold standard. And what he tells me helps explain why Victoria has just lived through its 3rd lockdown. This is an incompetent state government that can't be trusted to manage this virus. Well, life was returning to normal, but it didn't last long. Deserted streets and empty laneways, pubs and restaurants again ordered to close. For Victorians, it's an all too familiar sight.
We're angry.
I think what Daniel Andrews has done is wrong.
It's going to affect my livelihood.
I don't agree with what they've done.
Lockdown's not the answer.
This is lockdown 3.0. And while there was some reprieve from the Premier today,
restrictions will come off at midnight tonight.
Many are asking, how did Victoria end up here again?
But those machines are not allowed. That was clearly communicated.
On the 23rd of January, a man flew into Melbourne Airport and was quarantined at the Holiday Inn at Tullamarine. Well, 12 days later, he tested positive for coronavirus, and a theory started to develop, pushed by the Premier, that a nebuliser was to blame.
Short of barging into people's rooms multiple times a day, you've got to rely on people's judgment. You've got to rely on the individual choices that people make.
I really felt that the way that had been presented by Daniel Andrews was misrepresenting what actually happened.
This man, the one who used that nebuliser. He's been accused of causing this latest outbreak. He doesn't want his identity revealed, so we'll call him Patient X. Thank you for talking to me. I'm not going to use your name. I know you want to respect your privacy. I think you've been to hell and back. You've been very unwell, and your partner and little daughter, 3-month-old daughter, have been infected with COVID. How are you all going?
Look, at this stage, we're being told that we're getting a lot better. I certainly feel symptom-free now, and the doctors have been quite happy with my progress since I got out of ICU and subsequently hospital and back to hotel quarantine.
Set the scene for us. You've been overseas for some time. You've been in Europe. You came back to Australia and landed in Tullamarine Airport on the 23rd of January, straight into hotel quarantine. What was the process like when you were checking in and moved off the plane into these facilities?
Yeah, look, the process from the plane was really orderly and got taken through, given our detention notices, and then we were put on the Sky bus to go to the hotel. At that point, there's no one really watching social distancing or anything like that. People were sitting very close together on the bus. Essentially, you queued up outside. They let 2 people into the foyer at a time. And then you'd get your key to your room, and then they asked you a really, really brief set of questions about your medical history. It was literally, what illnesses do you have? What medicine do you take? And then you were put in the lift and sent to your room.
And what did you tell them when they asked you, what's your health history? What medicines do you take?
I told them that I was an asthmatic and that I took Ventolin and I had Ventolin nebules.
And when they asked you about whether or not you needed any more medication, did you feel that they were taking this seriously, that there was going to be some sort of follow-up, that they were writing this information down?
The whole interview was conducted within like 20, 30 seconds. I don't think they really took any form of detailed information down at all. The hotel staff called us, I'd say, within the first hour to make sure that we were settling in okay. At that point, again, they went and took a bit of a medical history a second time, which again declared everything that we had.
So again, you declared you had asthma, you declared that you used nebules, you had a nebuliser, and nothing was said at this stage?
No, and they confirmed that we definitely had enough medicine.
A nebuliser is a medical device that changes liquid medication into vapour. People with asthma can use them to administer medication directly into their lungs.
You certainly don't want anyone with a nebuliser going to hotel quarantine. You certainly don't want them using it. And the other thing, if they are using it, does that mean they are sick and perhaps should have gone to another facility? In Hong Kong and China, when SARS first appeared, a lot of healthcare workers got sick and died, and they worked out it was because they were giving patients nebulizers.
Patient X later tested positive to coronavirus and had to move hotels.
Tell me about the process for moving from the hotel you're at to one of these hot or COVID positive hotels.
So they contacted us in the morning and told us we were COVID positive and we'll move. We were kind of left in the dark. We were moved probably about 5 or 6 p.m. that night. We got onto a Sky bus again and were driven to the Flinders Lane Medi Hotel.
And what did you tell them about your asthma and your nebuliser then?
I'd said that my asthma had been getting progressively worse that day. I told them that I'd used the nebuliser earlier that day and that I was going to need to use it again because my breathing was deteriorating fairly rapidly at that stage and I was sort of gasping for breath. One of the nurses said that I could use it, but essentially I need to declare when I've used it.
Despite this, Victoria's Hotel Quarantine Authority denies it knew this man took a nebuliser into the hotel.
I can confirm for you that the head of CQV will be out later on today and she can take you through all of those issues. They've had an investigation of that matter, but I really can't add any further comment than that. But Emma will be out later today and she'll be able to answer any of those questions.
I can categorically say that there is no evidence from our audits that he has raised this with our health team or our operational team.
He claims he was given permission to use it.
Well, again, that's not our recollection and that's not our, from what we've heard and the stories that, the information that we had from our health providers, there is no evidence for that.
While you were in the intensive care area, you got a call from Brett Sutton. What did he call for?
I'd reached out to the DHHS at that point in time and I'd seen the news, Daniel Andrews obviously saying effectively what I felt was it was my fault. And I'd reached out to DHHS to speak to someone to say, well, I'd really like to talk about what's been said because I don't feel that the comments were fair. So
when you're in ICU and, you've got family in Melbourne who may put 2 and 2 together and realise that you could be at the centre of this controversy, how did it make you feel that the Premier is basically saying you using nebulizers caused the outbreak and the outbreak is the reason why Victoria is in lockdown?
At that stage, I was pretty unwell. It wasn't really until I kind of started to improve a little bit that I really understood the full ramifications of what had happened. So
when Brett Sutton called you and you raised your concerns about what was being said about you and using a nebuliser in quarantine, what was his response?
I do remember him talking about the fact that he kind of more manages the broad policies and not specific cases.
Did he apologise?
No.
And did he offer to speak to the Premier about your case?
No, I don't believe so.
Quite a lot of questions came to the government, particularly on Friday when you spoke out about how disturbed you were that you were being scapegoated in this case of Victoria's lockdown. What caused you to speak out?
I really felt that the way that it had been presented by Daniel Andrews was misrepresenting what actually happened, and I was annoyed at that stage that nobody from the government had actually reached out to me.
Emma Cassar was pushed in the media pretty hard. She's the woman now in charge of quarantine hotels for being so strong in her condemnation of the nebuliser and your use of it without speaking to you. I understand she spoke to you finally on Monday night. Did she apologise?
From a personal side, she did say that she's very sorry for what our family's going through. I don't believe that she made me the reason. I believe that Daniel Andrews did. I think that he has actually thrown her largely under the bus, to be honest, with this, and tried to deflect from himself.
Rather than admit the hotel quarantine system had failed again, Daniel Andrews chose instead to blame patient X. And the Premier made some big claims.
We have a different model and I believe higher standards. And this is not about boasting, so this is just a fact. If it was anything other than a good system, then I doubt very much that other First Ministers across the country would have agreed to copy it.
Not only has hotel quarantine failed Victorians, but so too contact tracing. Supposed to be the gold standard, wasn't it? The Premier said that. But this man, patient X, got a call from contact tracers on Saturday to tell him about the virus. Yet he was already in intensive care, having tested positive.
Even the contact tracer that called me, I had to explain that I'm actually in ICU and, probably in the safest place that I could be for myself and anyone else in Victoria, to be honest.
What do you want to have happen now?
I think there needs to be a federal inquiry into hotel quarantine in Victoria. There's obviously, I've heard of a local inquiry again occurring, or a state-based inquiry occurring again. But I think that we need someone outside the state of Victoria to look into this.
Do you think the Victorian government can manage hotel quarantine safely?
No, I don't believe so.
What's your message to Daniel Andrews?
He's made it clear that he doesn't want to apologise to me, which I'm very disappointed at. He did finger point at me, and I think that a public apology would have been appropriate for this situation.
Tonight they come out of lockdown. What's your message to fellow Victorians who, like you, have lived through some tough couple of days?
I'd like to thank everyone for their support. I think that that's really nice to hear that this message is getting out there, and they're supporting a review of this system. And look, I hope that they can get outside and enjoy the sun.